We now go to item 73. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take items 73 and 97 back to back. Item 73, requesting the Planning Commission to study and amending the UDC to put in place a distance limitations for psychiatric hospitals by Councilmember Hurst. Is anyone here wishing to speak on item 73? We have a few wishing to speak on item 73. State Senator Regina Barrow is here wishing to speak on item 73. Come on down. At this time, I want to recognize some elected officials in the building that I see. I see Shoshone Stewart representing the school board, and I also see Chairman of the school board, Darius Lanus. Thank you for joining us today. And again, our Senator Regina Barrow is here with us, who's going to speak now. Senator Barrow.
Mayor Pro Tem, we also have a past council member.
Who's that? Where?
Right through the, Ms. Gail, stand up.
Gail
Stand
Joseph,
up.
where are you?
Right
How
there.
you doing, Ms. Joseph? Thanks for joining us today.
What did you say, 1994? 94.
94. Good year. State Senator.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem, and all the members of the council. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to speak. Do I speak on 73 and 97 together, or will it be separate?
Whatever you choose.
Okay, well, I will speak on both of them together by Councilman Hurst. I am in support of both of those resolutions. I don't know, and I guess he will share with you in a little bit. We had a meeting about a month ago on a rainy Saturday morning at 10 a.m., and we had nearly 400 people to show up to that meeting. We also have where individuals have signed a petition stating that they do not want this in this community. And so as the senator who represents this area, but also a member of that community, I am stating while I do support mental health and individuals being able to get mental health, I am not in support of placing a psychiatric hospital near a school and in the middle of a community. Just recently, at the state capitol, I had a piece of legislation that would deal with castration, with physical castration of those who commit sexual crimes against children. During that hearing, a lady came and she shared, and I won't share her name, but she shared about this man named Timothy Mouton. Because her testimony was, regardless what you do to certain people, it is not going to stop the action because the problem that they have is mental. And she talked about this particular man who has served his time, was released, had an ankle monitor, and within 3 days they was looking for him. He had created a manifesto of how to commit crimes against children and to kill them. Needless to say, that gentleman now is located at East Feliciana Psychiatric Hospital. The one thing about him that makes him a little different is that he has been charged. So because he has been charged and has served time, according to what the law says, he would not be allowed to stay there. But there are individuals who have not been charged, who have the same condition that he does, who could possibly be placed in that facility. And so with that said, I am asking you to please vote in favor of both of those resolutions and to make sure that we are protecting our babies at all costs and making sure that we make sure this community remains a safe community. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Senator, come on down.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. This is always a pleasure to come before you all and speak. My name is Darius Lanus. I serve as the president of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. I think it goes without saying what it is we're talking about tonight. In no other district, because I actually live in District 5, represented by Councilman Hurst, but in no other district would something like this be allowed, where you would place literally in walking distance a forensic hospital for the criminally insane, where you have serial rapists, serial murderers, whether they have been charged or whether they have been deemed judged by any judicial court system, where you would allow a facility of this kind to be next to a school or any inhabited dwelling where people live in a residential area. I don't even think we're thinking about we think about the impacts of how it's going to physically address what happens inside of the area, but think about the economic impact also. When you put a hospital of this kind inside of a community like the one we're talking about, it's going to kill property values that we have been so hard fighting for the last several years. It is not just an elementary school that we're talking about. We're talking about a high school, literally walking distance from the school. We're talking about the elementary school right next door. We're talking about another elementary school a mile away. In short, I will just say, this is definitely a measure or an item that I truly do support. I support this resolution put forth by Councilman Hurst. It just makes good sense. No one is saying that this is not something that should happen inside of our community. In fact, I went to the owners of the facility where it was bought, and I asked them on behalf of the school system, can we do a property swipe? We have several properties all across East Baton Rouge Parish, many of which that are not inside of inhabited dwellings, and those offers were denied. There is nothing else that we can do legally from a school system standpoint to try to stop this from happening. So therefore, I come before each and every single one of you today and ask you to please do your part. Think about the kids that we're serving every single day. Think about those residents that are just like residents inside of each and every single one of your districts who pay taxes every single day, every single year, and have voiced and said that they do not want something like this to happen. Because I can guarantee you this, if it was a school in your district, I would still be up here saying the same thing. Because it doesn't matter that it's inside of my district. What matters is how it affects the people who attend that school and how it affects the people who live in those communities. And they have said time and time and time again, they do not want it. Again, I want to stress this point. No one is saying that this hospital is not needed. It is needed because those people need somewhere where they can go, where they can be properly treated. What we are saying is it should not happen in inhabited dwellings or an inhabited neighborhood next to a school, especially not that close or a close proximity or distance. I thank you so much and ask you all to please make the right choice.
Come on down.
Thank you, school board member Darius. I appreciate the time to talk before the council, Councilman Cole, other distinguished members. I am representing the Glen Oaks Area Neighborhood Association. I am but the tip of the spear. The real residents and neighbors of this, of our neighborhood, Mr. Tommy here, Mr. Frank Brown, Ms. Dorothy, I see Mr. James Scott, all the members. Please forgive me. We have so many of our residents that have came out and have publicly said no. I have been in the Glen Oaks area since 1979. My parents bought their first house when they were married in 1979 in the Glen Oaks area. That is the house that I've returned to, is the house that I live, that I take care of. Because as residents, we take our community very seriously. To belabor the point, Darius is right. Nobody's saying that psychiatric care is not needed. I needed psychiatric help. I suffer from addiction. I've been in jail. And the ability to turn my life around, I needed those resources. But I was given those resources in a proper way, in a proper facility. This facility is not what the residents of the Glen Oaks area need. It's not what they want. They have spoken. I don't see how there's any discussion on why we are having this discussion in the first place. The resolutions that were brought to by Councilman Hurst are reasonable and achievable. And this council, in its wisdom, should see this. If I was to build by Terra High, was I to build in Shenandoah, if I was to build in South Downs or anywhere else, I guarantee you, your residents will be trying to stop what we're doing. It's common sense. It's easy, like 1, 2, 3. The math adds up. Thank you. And please, I implore you, do the right thing.
Come on down. State your name and address for the record.
I'm Dorothy Thomas, and Thank you all for having me. I've been in the Glen Oaks area over 50 years. I would like to lie down at night and be able to rest. In the daytime, I would like to know that my grandchildren are safe. But when I heard about what was about to happen next to our schools, I am very disappointed. And I don't think that's right. I don't think any of you all would like to have a psychiatric hospital that close to your communities or your children or grandchildren's school. And I oppose this. And I just would like for you all to please try not to do that, because we're not going to rest. Everybody we have a lot of elderly people in the community. And our children that close to a psychiatric hospital, no. I know you all wouldn't want that, and neither does we. So please do the right thing. Thank you so much.
Come on down, state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Ashley Bennett. My address is 5237 Purely Street, and I just want to ask the council to please don't let this mental health hospital come in the neighborhood for the kids and also the elderly in the community. Thank you.
Come on down, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Edna Cozy. My address is 7167 Carlene Avenue, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70811. I am a member of Councilman Hurst's district, District 5. I am president of the Forest Heights Park Homeowners Association, and I think that those who have preceded me have indicated a great justification as to why we should not locate these facilities near our high-density area neighborhoods nor schools. I agree with the proposal of 97. However, I am proposing or requesting that the council considers that, considering the fact that law enforcement responds to incidences not in a timely manner, should one of these criminals escape, then I think 1 mile for residential, 2 miles for schools is insufficient. So I'm humbly requesting that you would consider, if you see the need to locate one of these facilities in an area, that you would consider that it be located no less than 5 miles from a school or a highly density neighborhood. I thank you very much for your attention and for your time, and I pray that you would consider this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on down.
I'm usually at the state capitol or the school board, but I was actually sitting next to the lady that Senator Barrow talked about in the committee for her task force to stop sex crimes against children. You've also probably heard about the one where they almost got out of Rayburn 16 years early last year. That's how I met Dick, because he was the cameraman for Chris. I was told that whenever DOC's model inmate child molester who was charged with 49 crimes against 7 kids walks out of Rayburn, whenever that is, between now and 2038, he'll probably be in a facility like this. I recently got a sex offender notification about a child molester who moved not too far from Liberty High. You cannot legally have sex offenders that are criminally insane, and most of them have committed crimes against children sexually. And by law, you cannot put them anywhere near schools, much less residential neighborhoods, because that puts too many innocent lives in danger. And trust me, my brothers were violated when they were 9 and 11. I was 6 when one of my brothers started coping by incesting me. I don't wish that hell on anybody, and I'm about to be 40 in a few months. So support Councilman Hurst's agenda. Thank you.
Come on down, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Buchanan. I live in Glen Oaks. The amendments are good, but are they going to apply to the situation in Glen Oaks? Unless these amendments are retroactive to be enforced for there, this project is going to go forward because they're saying, and I want people to understand, these amendments does not apply to the situation. It's for future communities. It's for future. So now we still have to deal with what's going on in Glen Oaks. I talked to Councilman Hurst. We had a very in-depth conversation. We understand what's going on. I want the people to understand, nobody wants the facility there. But in my belief and understanding, talking to other people in higher authority, it's going to happen. So let's look and see how we can do and what we can do to do better. Councilman Hurst, I know you're not taking questions, but you know I'm telling the truth. I know you're not going to have another meeting. I don't know how this can be resolved. When you are saying you didn't know this was happening, I told some other people, they called me and say, did you know this is going on? I said, no. When I started doing research, yes. I say, stop lying to the people. People make mistakes. This was an error. Accept the error, the mistake, and say, hey, let's see what we can do. Because I feel, and other people above me feel, the facility is going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on down. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Keisha Robinson, 2736 Florida Boulevard, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. First, I will start with agenda item number 73, requesting the Planning Commission to study amending the UDC. My request is to the council members, before you all vote on that, have you all consider adding experts from the mental health field and also individuals that's currently working with forensic programs to be part of that study committee, so that we are making sure that we address the issues here in the great state of Louisiana. We do realize that mental health as well as crime throughout the state is at an all-time high. The people that testified before me, they all agree that they're in favor of mental health treatment. But if you are not fully aware of the services that forensic programs offer, before making a decision, that you all sit down and also speak to individuals about the programs that we offer to the mental health population. In regards to item number 97, proposed location within 2 miles of a school or 1 mile in a residential neighborhood. From my understanding, since 2005, there have been a mental health facility in District 5 that each of you all should be made aware of. The name of the mental health facility, one of them was Apollo. So the only thing that's going to be different is the individual that's going to be in District 5. So I don't know, while this issue is a big surprise to the Homeowners Association and everyone else, if this facility have operated under that capacity since 2005. So I would like for you all to consider all those factors when making a decision that's for the greater good of the community and not a select population.
Thank you. Come on down. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is E.J. Putman. I've lived in the Glen Oaks area since 1976. The school that is near the facilities that they are talking about, psychiatric facility, my daughter attended that school and she's now 54 years old. So I've been in the community quite a while. And I've never seen or any business of that type or anything like that built that close or in the facility. I don't know a whole lot about mental health, but a building of that sort, I don't think should be in a community where people live and go to school, church, and that sort of thing. So how far along is that planning for that facility? I have no idea. But if you all can do anything to stop it from being a part of our community, then I hope y'all will do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Come on down, state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. Patrick Wilson, 428 East Drive, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Council, thank you very much for this opportunity. I consider myself a very fair person, so whenever this is brought to my attention, I first ask myself, can they do that? Can we prevent a psychiatric facility from being implemented in this area? And the reason I'm saying I'm not an attorney, don't pretend to be one, it seems to me to be discriminatory. Whenever we began to tell individuals, no matter what their background is, no matter what their race is, no matter what they may have done in the past, when we begin to tell individuals where they can and cannot live, in my words, I feel that that's discriminatory. And I'm imploring of you all to please consider that whenever you begin to do your studies, maybe appoint an attorney to the board or something to make sure we're not treading any bad water here whenever we begin to tell these individuals where they can and cannot live. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on down, state your name and address for the record, please.
Alonzo Coleman. I live 7235 Perimeter Drive, 70812 Baton Rouge. And I support Councilman Hurt's proposals to stop this project because it's not only just the school and the community of kids, it's quite a few seniors that live in the Glen Oaks area, which would be trouble to have that kind of facility with people getting out at night. We have proven in the area that we cannot contain criminals. We have them constantly breaking out over off of Harding Boulevard. We moved some to Angola, and they can't seem to keep them in place. So the effort that they have been doing over there trying to prepare this place to house these people, I don't think it's went through any kind of professional security or staff that will tell you what you need to try to prevent someone from breaking out of there. And I think we have been duped, as I heard the word before, with this kind of situation. And the person talked about what used to be over there. And yeah, they used to be, but now they are not there. And the place was shut down, and they bought it and they renovated it to put people over there. So now I think it's time for us to stand up and give the taxpayers of North Baton Rouge, the Glen Oaks area, at least something that they can say that they didn't want, that we didn't get. Because everything that we wanted has been taken away from us, and the things that we don't want nobody to just give them to them at our expense. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Come on down, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Frank Brown. I live at 6934 Modesto. I'm not going to take up a lot of your time because what everybody have said, I somewhat agree with it, but I just wanted to go on the record to let you know that I'm not in favor of this facility. I applaud Councilman Hurst for bringing this to the forefront. The bottom line is the only thing that I disagree with it, I think it needs to be put in a rural area. I think that 1 mile and 2 miles is not enough. So I just wanted to go on the record for that, and I hope you all consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on item 73? Anyone else wishing to speak? Council Ashley.
Council members, you should have received 2 comments in opposition to item 73 and 2 comments in opposition to item 97.
Councilmember Rocker. Item 73. We're on item 73.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan Holcomb, if you don't mind answering a couple of questions, I was looking for Paula Messina. Typically, in my district, people have been really upset about halfway houses going into neighborhoods, and I was told that they are protected by federal law. Does this mental health facility or this type of facility, whatever it may be, does it fall under the same protected status that the halfway houses do, or is there some sort of protective status protecting this, and does it conflict with the limitations of the UDC that we're seeking to put in place?
That would be two different uses. That would be protection under the Fair Housing Act, where you can't discriminate against a protected class. This is what's classified as a hospital use currently in the Unified Development Code. under Chapter 9. So if this body chooses to initiate the study, that's certainly something we'll look at. We'll research it, prepare a report back to the council along with best practices, research other communities, along with making sure that it's legal and it stands up and it's, would not be able to be overturned.
Okay, and then one more question that I have, and this is more of a personal question for myself. I've driven all over the state of Louisiana, and oftentimes you'll see facilities such as this in obscure areas, and you'll see signage even on the roads around these areas that say do not pick up hitchhikers. It's similar in areas where we have jails and criminal facilities throughout the state. Are there ordinances, or is that just the facility putting those things up? Is there something that we can mimic potentially from another parish or another outlying area where we can copy what's been done and stay within the legal guidelines that's already been done, already been tested and proven?
I'm not aware of anything offhand. I know there are distance requirements and certain regulations for correctional facilities that are privately run. So that's something that we'll certainly look at if this is initiated tonight to formally study it.
Okay, so by initiating this, we're not actually changing anything. We're just doing a study to make sure that we're within the confines of the law to do so and to properly write this new code.
That's correct.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Hurst.
I have 20 minutes. Since there's 2 items, and I get 5 minutes on each one. Let me make that clear for the record.
That's incorrect, but I mean, go ahead. You're wasting time with your comments now. Go ahead.
No, so a couple of things that were said that I want to address. Number one is that facility was built as a nursing home that I used to go volunteer for during Christmas holidays when I was younger and pass out socks and sing Christmas carols and make the people who live there have a joyous life, because that facility was built as a nursing home to take care of the loved ones of people who lived in that community, so that their elderly people, when they were no longer able to take care of them, could be in close proximity. Now, when Louisiana Guest House, which was the name of it, moved out of the community, Apollo did move in. And I am not against mental health. I am 100% for mental health. I've suffered with depression. My family suffered with depression. Other people have mental issues. So I get it. I am 100% for it. But, Justin, if you could put the purpose of the RFP up there, you understand the difference between traditional mental health and forensic. So I want the people to be able to read this. It says the purpose of this RFI is to enter into one or more in-kind cooperative endeavor agreements for services from qualified private sector providers who are interested in providing a highly secure, licensed, Joint Commission accredited and CMS certified intermediate psychiatric hospital with 50 to 118 licensed inpatient hospital beds for the severely, persistently mentally ill adult population in the state of Louisiana. The population served are those who are forensically, keyword forensically, criminally involved with aggressive/dangerous behaviors and who have been civilly committed subsequent to being found unrestorably incompetent to proceed to trial. That is completely different than anything that has ever been in that community, and we have a plan to go in that community. All right. I'll tell you a couple of things that had a negative impact on this. There's a development behind it from New Heights. And we talked about right development in North Baton Rouge, getting developed that adds value to our community. This neighborhood is selling homes for $300,000 to $500,000. We have not seen that in that area of town in an extremely long time. I got calls, my legislative aide got calls from the people who were purchasing the homes that hadn't broke ground, asking how could they get their deposits back. All right, the teachers and students the teachers requested transfers, students started to de-enroll from the school immediately when they found that this was taking place. We had major concern about declined home values, and I think the biggest thing that stuck out for me was even after the facility was stated that it would not open, we had 400 members that showed up to a community meeting to still show concern and opposition to ensure that they were protected, not just at that moment, but long term from things like this happening in the future. How can we mitigate these plans from happening? And you guys should have received a petition that Senator Regina Barrow passed around. I have it right here, but via email that has almost 300 to 400 signatures on there with everyone who showed up at that meeting being in opposition. And I will tell you, since I've been in office, and I know there's been some stuff at the zoo and other places, this has probably been the largest attended meeting North Baton Rouge, we had some voter polls in that same district that didn't have 400 people hit a button. So it meant that much to them. This resolution intentionally does not say the word Glen Oaks in it. It's for East Baton Rouge Parish. Because I have a list of questions that I want to ask, and everybody may stand different. That's why when we do this, I wanted to go to a vote so we can show on the machine where everybody is. But Councilman Noel, would you want this next to Zachary High? Would your people support it? Councilwoman Banks, would it go next to Scotlandville? Councilwoman Coleman, would it go next to McKinley High? Councilwoman Amoroso, would it go next to Woodlawn and Dwight Hudson? Same thing for you. Councilman Cole, would you put it next to your students at CSAL? Councilwoman Rocker, would you put it next to Lehigh? Rowdy, would you put it next to UI? Cleve, would it go next to Capitol? Lord, would it be allowed next to Bocage and Baton Rouge Country Clubs? And Aaron Moe, would it go next to Central High School? If your answer is yes to any of this, then we're going to go to the machine because I want to see everybody stands on this. Because I don't want it in my neighborhood and I don't want it in yours either. And that's why this resolution doesn't talk about Glen Oaks. It talks about East Baton Rouge Parish and distance limits to make sure that the concerns of the constituents that were expressed to me are brought about today. And I'm going to stop here because I want to save my time since I was wrong about my 20 minutes. But I think that's enough. I think you heard from the community. In droves, different organizations, Together Baton Rouge, Glen Oaks, Forest Heights. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Dunn. Councilmember Dunn.
Ryan, could you come, please? This item specifically talks about doing the study to evaluate all the things that you and Councilwoman Rocker discussed. How long will it take for the study to be complete?
I can't give a definite time frame. I mean, we'll certainly prioritize it with our other duties and responsibilities. We've done other studies before the council. There was a short-term rental study that took quite a bit longer than I anticipate this. Our last study we reported was a rural zoning study that took 2 or 3 months to put together. But
so you anticipate this one taking less time or more time than that?
I can't give you a definite time. I would say somewhere in a couple months.
1 to 3.
Yeah, somewhere between 1 and 3 months.
All right. The other thing I want you to speak on, because many of the members of the public spoke on this. This item is about the study. The other one is about a resolution, but neither of these items specifically speak to the facility that's in place and what the plans are for the facility moving forward. Could you speak to the current state of the facility, what their capacity is, speak to the RFI that Darryl showed, and are they able to move forward and operate in that capacity? Just kind of broad overview of where things stand today.
I believe you're referring to the facility on Summerall?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't have the detailed information in front of me on that item. That particular item isn't on the agenda. I believe it was approved. That one's unique, that it was approved as a small plan unit development. That is the zoning that was approved many years ago on that property. It was unique in the fact that it specified a specific number of beds on that facility. I believe that number was 36 for overnight stays. Again, I don't have the detailed information.
So just for a point of clarity for the public, can the current owners or operators operate that facility in the capacity that's described in the RFI with the 36 beds?
In a very limited capacity based on the number of beds. Right now, the Unified Development Code distinguishes hospital uses. We do not have a specific mental health use in the Unified Development Code. It is a complex issue, so we treat hospitals no different than mental hospitals.
So as the woman mentioned who spoke earlier, they can move forward and operate in this capacity now?
In some similar capacity based on how it was approved back in the day.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Hudson.
Ryan, a couple more questions. So I'm all for doing a study. I guess my concern is sort of there's some vagueness to it. Does a SPUD designate a use?
Yeah, so a SPUD is a rezoning and a site plan together. It's specific uses. It can be very specific. It can be general, but it also includes a site plan that shows a layout of the overall site, parking, building footprint, landscaping, etc.
So the distance limitations wouldn't necessarily be distance limitations for SPUDs. It would be SPUDs of a certain use, and that use could be a psychiatric hospital. You could get that specific.
We talking the study or the resolution?
The study.
I'm sorry. The study will look at the use in general, how it's treated in other communities, other best practices, other planning commissions of cities or similar size in the southeast region, and then provide some options on how to handle that, incorporating potential modifications to the Unified Development Code for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gode.
Thank you, sir. My intention, Mayor Pro Tem, is to ask questions about 73 and 97. I want to ensure
Well, we're going to take them back to back, but separate. So I would say ask questions about 73 now and 97
All right.
next.
Then I'm comfortable in 73. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
good deal. Councilmember Dunn.
Ryan, a couple more questions. In the event that the current owners or operators wanted to fulfill the requirements of the RFI and service a population of 50 to 118 beds, what would they have to do as it relates to the city, parish, and planning and zoning?
That would be a substantial major change that would require additional public hearings before Planning Commission and Council.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember
Before I yield my time, Frank Brown and one of the other members of the public mentioned about the 1 to 2 mile radius. They didn't think it was far enough.
Right.
I would impress upon Ryan and staff and others throughout this study to look at a radius that's much larger than that as well. I think it needs to be more of in a rural area and not in a residential area, definitely not next to a school. So as a part of the study, let's make sure we're looking at that. I don't even know if 5 miles is enough, but we have plenty of property in rural areas that are miles away from residential areas and schools. So let's make sure we look at that in the study. Thank you.
Mr. Ryan.
Councilmember Moak.
So right now, according to what was asked, we're limited to 36 beds, correct?
For the facility on Summerall?
Yes, this facility, yes, correct. That's 36 beds?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Anything else would have to come before us. Going back to some other things that are brought up, I do agree. We're requesting the Planning Commission to study and amend the UDC and place the distance limitations for psychiatric hospitals. With your rezoning, we talk about hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, any other kind of facilities. Is there anything else that we need to amend this scope as far as? I don't want to do this. I guess what's your broad range that you're going to look in here? Are you just going to look at particular psychiatric type of hospitals, all different categories of any kind of mental facility place? Are there other categories that we might be missing in this study? That's one of my concerns as far as, are we narrowing down on a specific thing here that we may need to amend this?
I mean, a specific request would be expedited quicker than a broad request where.
Yeah. That's my only concern with this, and I just didn't know if you've been across different categorizations, different ways. We do this whole study, and we narrow down to a particular type of thing, and then we create a loophole or something like that. So I just wanted to see if there was something we needed to take care of in amending this. Be more than happy to let Councilman Hurst answer that, too. I know he's been looking into it.
Yeah. Okay. And look, Aaron kind of tossed the ball on my court, and so I apologize for not waiting. But I want to make a floor amendment that this is specific forensic psychiatric, because I'm okay with mental health being, 73. So I want to amend it from the floor that specifically says forensic psychiatric. That was my initial intent.
Yep.
And I guess just reading it fast, oversight, but that was the initial intent for it.
Councilmember Coleman.
Yes, and let the record reflect that
I'm not moved by emotions, Hurst, and to call out and ask about if McKinley, if I'd wanted near McKinley, some of the stuff that's happening at some of these schools, I question, for sure. So let that be known. And so we really need to look at those things that are happening at school and not just these other facilities. And so my question, though, for all of this, Ryan, please, or anybody, an attorney or anybody, I want to know, as it was alluded to earlier, where are we legally with discriminatory efforts, Fair Housing Act, just legally, where are we with this?
I'm not an attorney, I'm not an expert on this matter, but we'll certainly include that as part of the research. It's my understanding this is for the treatment facility, not the residential housing component of it. So there is a separate transitional housing element after patients leave these types of facilities. That, my understanding, this is limited to the forensic hospital type facility. So we'll certainly look into that. The legal aspect will certainly be part of that report. We'll work closely with the parish attorney as we do with any potential Unified Development Code study or amendment to make sure it holds up on legal grounds.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to ask that we make sure that that's what we're taking a look at. What is legal? Not what feels good or any of that, but what is legal. Today it may be this population. Tomorrow, what happens? So I just want to make sure when we do what we do that it is by the law.
Councilmember Banks.
Yes, I do support the study aspect. So I'm trying to, is 73 the study?
No, 73 is the study.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, because it doesn't say study. Oh, yeah, study amending. Okay, so one of the things Councilman Hurst brought up was the distinction between psychiatric and forensic, and that led me to also think about behavioral health. So I guess I agree with the study because there are so many different, I guess, indications on when we talk about mental health. So many variations, and the question is, in doing this study, I would like us to kind of have a mental health expert, possibly part of the study, to give us those different definitions. I forgot what is the book, the book that you use for diagnosis? DSM-4, right? Is it still at 4? Okay. 5 now, right, yeah. So, so that we can have those variations because it does matter. And would it matter if it's the timeline by which, do you know right now if this is addressed in the UDC, the timeline, like transitional versus permanent, is there a distinction or does it matter?
No, it's not addressed.
Okay. So that could possibly be part of the study too. This is going to be a long study, sounds like.
That's it.
And it shouldn't be rushed. I also agree with, just as Councilman Moak indicated, it needs to be inclusive of all the possibilities. I know we have, as it relates to alcohol, not within a distance to schools and churches and all of that. And though this is long range, but it may be wise to also look at those other varying areas where there is a distinction as to how far away, because I mean, even when we talk about discrimination, that could be considered discriminatory, but it absolutely is something that's been on the books forever. So yeah, y'all can have a long meeting. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Coleman.
Yes, sir. I see that Mr. Elliott is in the building there, Temple. Come up and give us, I don't like beating all around bushes. And I think that everything, that's one of my favorite songs, Everything Out in the Open. Mr. Temple, talk to us about this particular forensic.
Good evening,
place.
members of the council. I wasn't really expecting to speak this evening, but what I will say is, since 1999, this forensic psych population has been in EBR. Now, the past few weeks, I've heard some statements saying that these were potential murderers, potential serial killers. That couldn't be further from the truth. And I want everybody to understand that. And what it does is it paints a picture, and it gets neighbors up in a roar, worried, concerned. I would be concerned. It gets the news media up in a roar and talking about it. Since 1999, we've had 120 clients, 150 clients in 3 or so different facilities. And if they were that dangerous, you're talking about 100 clients that dangerous, you'd have on average 4 or 5 violent incidents a year, on average, at least that, if they were that dangerous. Let's just say it was 2 incidents. In 10 years, that would be 20 violent incidents, from 99 to 2009. From 2009 to 2019, that would be 40 violent incidents. And from 2019 until now, that would be another 5 or 6. Well, let me tell you guys, there haven't been 45 violent incidents. There haven't been 40. There hasn't been 30. There hasn't been 20, 10. There hasn't been 5 since 1999, since Mr. Hurst has been in high school. There hasn't been 5 violent incidents from these population of clients. Now, you can read RFI, but just because you read RFI, you don't know these clients. You don't know who these clients are. You've never met these clients. These clients might be at a toy giveaway for some of the council members. They may be at a bash for kids. They may be at whatever. These guys have been. Now let me say this. Since you brought me up here, the hardest population to deal with are the kids. The 12-year-old to 17-year-old kids that are in group homes. Those are the ones that fight at school, fight in the homes, get suspended. They get stopped for having weed and all kind of stuff. That's the toughest population to deal with. And guess what? They're going to be the toughest population to deal with. Because at the group homes, they don't have a mom, they don't have a dad. All they have are other kids in the facility that don't have a mom or dad, and they have serious behavior issues as well. These forensic psych patients, since 1999, I can't recall having one violent incident in the community, in the facility. So I want everybody to understand what we're talking about. Words and what you can say really can sway somebody's thinking, but you really have to know who we're talking about, who you're dealing with before you make a rash decision. All I would say is just think about it. Since 1999, I can't count on one hand how many violent incidents they've had with these populations, these same population of people. Again, the toughest population are the kids, the knuckleheads, 12 years old to 17 years old. That's what I would say.
Councilmember Moe.
Could you come back up real quick? I can't remember his name. Mr. Temple? Mr. Temple, could you come back up? How many other facilities do we have operating in East Baton Rouge Parish under the same capacity or the same of what we're trying to
I'm
open
aware
here?
of 3 facilities. I'm aware of 3.
You have general location of where those are?
Yeah, you have one in Brookstown. You have one on North Street, and you have one on Convention Street. And due to HIPAA, you can't really give.
No, I'm not asking for exactly. I guess exactly where they're at, but in your opinion, are they meeting the same criteria as far
All
as
of these-
location as what this one is?
All of these clients come from the same.
No, not the client. I'm talking about the physical location of the place. Does it meet the same criteria as what is trying to be opened here over on Summerall?
Well,
Correct?
it's more lenient, if anything.
What you mean?
It's not as much security that was going to be on Summerall.
Okay,
It's not as much security.
Let's discuss location and proximity to what the citizens are concerned about.
So again, that's a great question. We're talking about
Are the three facilities you talked about a second ago, are they meeting that same criteria as what this one is, the concerns that this one is raising itself in a neighborhood?
Yes, they're
Like in the middle of a neighborhood.
All three of them are in neighborhoods.
Next to a school, next to,
They're next to. They have one that's next to a school. They have one that's next to a church. They have one that's. They're all in a neighborhood.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I was wondering. I mean, again, we talk about there's more out there. There's this here. There's so many and so on and so forth. But I guess I wanted to know what the criteria was for those that matched for what this one was going to be, and I appreciate the information.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to you talk about incidences, and I appreciate the information that you said.
Okay.
But you were hesitant to say 0 incidences.
Yes.
You never said
The
that.
reason I didn't say 0, let me tell you why I didn't say 0, because I can't recall any. But what I can tell you is for certain, there has been less than 5. And I'm telling you, I don't think there has been any. I really don't. But I don't want to sit up here and say that on the record, saying that there hadn't been any.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, I really don't recall any.
And these facilities that you're saying are here are the same, this is the same exact classification as far as facility that is being opened here on Summerall? Forensic, again, I'm trying to learn all this.
Correct.
Psychology, psychiatric.
These are all forensic psych patients.
The forensic psych patient, is that someone that's been arrested?
So
what's the difference?
So none of them have been committed or are committed of a crime. None of them have been committed of a crime. It would take the doctors to come, some of the doctors to come explain the difference between civil and forensic.
I apologize for you on the spot. You just sounded like you knew your information, I wanted to ask.
Right. So again, that's
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councilmember, we'll go now.
I'm gonna go now. Mr. Temple, can you come back to the
Councilmember
microphone?
Hurst.
So I'm very familiar with the 3 facilities that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Either one of them hospitals.
Are any of them hospitals?
Is any one of them hospital? Yes or no?
No, they're not in a hospital.
They are under a protected class because they are transition homes, correct?
Correct.
Which means these people have become chemically balanced and are able to leave East Feliciana, and then they're transitioning from, no different than transition from jail to go to a halfway house, to go to a community, which means this is completely different as it terms from hospital than it is from transitional home, which is what you're talking about, the 3 are. Because there are some people in East that will never get the opportunity to leave East because they cannot go into society where they're not a harm to themselves or the population around them. So what you're talking about is
initially, that's how it was set up. Initially, that's the same population that we're talking about. That they were saying the same thing that what you're talking about these guys. That they'll wait. You were when this stuff was initially set up in '99. They were saying these guys are not going to be able to be restored. They're incompetent. They're this. They're that. Now, watch this. They've grown. They've seen, the doctors have said, "Oh, wait a minute, we're here. These guys are really maturing. I see their incompetence is getting restored. They're getting a lot better." The stuff that you're saying.
So you're on my time, so I'm gonna ask you to pause right there because I want to say something. But I support the ones in my district because I know what one of them is, and it has forensic psychiatric patients who are transitioning or from East into the community. I don't think anybody should be locked up in a place longer than they than they should. I think that at that point it's cruelty.
If you support that, then why don't you? Why wouldn't you support? And I'm just asking, why wouldn't you support this?
It's my time. So what I'm saying is that the people who are in this facility are the ones that Senator Barrow was talking about, where the guy who came out and wrote a manifesto was in East. He probably will never get out. That's the population, and we're on my time, so I'd have to ask you to speak to make another comment. But those are the people who will be held in a hospital. I'm not talking about a transitional facility. I believe in group homes. I believe in halfway houses. I believe that nobody should be over-criminalized or over-mentally conditioned, over-medicated, over-housed in any type of condition in any point in time. This is not the same thing. And I got some other notes.
It's not the same thing because that's what you read, correct?
Well,
is that something that you read?
Let me explain something to you because I got some more time. You can't talk on my time. I got to ask you a question. But what it says is, because I sat down with the other operators and I talked to them about unintended consequences. And I said, well, what happens when this thing expands and the facility wants to grow and you do want to take on that adolescent population that you said is so bad?
No, we don't.
And they said we would take them on. I will repeat it 10 times in front of them. In addition to that, which I talked about her comments. I don't want to lose my time. I talked about Senator Barrow's comments because that person will probably never leave East. That person will probably never leave this facility if it was on Sumrall. Now, the people who are on, I ain't going to say what they are, but the people who are in the other facilities, I know all three of them are, those are people who are transitioning away from East. Those are people who technically got parole from jail, if you want to give a parallel. Those are people who have served their time. There are some people who get life sentences that end up on parole. Maybe I said it the wrong way. I'm sorry. But the bottom line is these are people who are transitioning out of East because they've been found at some point competent. And there are other facilities around the city like Bridge Center. If the sheriff's department comes out, the city police comes out, and they go on a crime scene, or they go to a place that's not a crime scene, we just called one our community center a couple days ago, where the woman was having a nervous breakdown in our bathroom at the Charles Kelly Center, and we called 911. We had the ambulance come out. The ambulance picked the woman up. She didn't want to go. Then she came back and said, I need help. We called 911 again. The ambulance came out, took her to the Bridge Agency. That is a stabilization clinic. They determine where that person is because somebody may have a mental imbalance for a very short period of time. And during that period of time, I get you balanced, and then I send you back in the general population, whether it be through medication, whether it be through counseling, whatever it may be. This is not that type of facility. This is a facility where you may never see the light of day again outside of that facility unless a doctor allows you to do so. And then when they do that, then they go to a transition home like one of the three that you have, and that's when they go back into society.
Councilman Hurst, that's your time. You'll have 10 minutes on the next item.
Thank you.
Councilmember Banks. Turn your mic on, please.
Are you against this item? Or did you have a position at all?
I'm against the item.
Okay, why?
Yeah. These guys, this population of folks have, like I said, stated earlier, they've been in this, they've been here, and they've done extremely well in here. I think that some statements were made, and it raised a lot of eyebrows, and it scared a lot of people. But what you don't want to do as a council is discriminate against a population of people, because then you're talking about putting the city in some hot water, especially if it'd be different if this was open in 99 and in 2000 they had 6 or 7 murders. This whole place will be closed down. But we're talking about over 23 years of service,
right,
where they haven't had any problems.
Okay.
Any. So I'm against it.
You know, we are several things. Number one, we are living in a time where we basically there's no such thing as saying what may never happen. You know, things are.
And that's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Things are getting worse. I do, you know, someone who represents the northern part of the parish, I am a advocate for not putting anything in our agent, in our communities that does not add to the quality of life of the residents. And that is, that has to be intentional in North Baton Rouge because of the multiple deficits that exist today. So that is why something like this is not seen as being positive to the community.
Correct.
And so in doing that, you know, that's why there's a determination on would you put it in North Baton Rouge, putting it in South Baton Rouge, would it put you in your house? That does matter. That does have a play. But more than anything, just last week, there was an article in the paper regarding the homeowners policy of everyone that lived near Angola tripling. And so that is something also that would be of concern for the residents that are already exist, that if there's a forensic facility that is moved into their area, just the idea, and whether it's a stigma or not, and whether or not the words don't adequately describe what your personal experience has been, the words that are written is what you go by. And so for you, you all as operators, you may have a standard that is high, but if we can't just protect the residents based on the current facility, based on the current operator, we have to realize that these things are going to go long after we leave. We know how frequent it is for facilities such as this, hospitals and what have you, to now change ownership. And we may get somebody who does not have the same sense of value and commitment. So that is why these things are necessary to be more focused on in the northern part of the parish. So I do support the UDC. I do also think that there should be a study, and being on planning and zoning, I would feel more comfortable in being able to look at having the study before we would make those changes. So right now we're talking about a study, and I don't know if it's time to make a motion to approve or not, but I would
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. Did you want to? Huh? I hear you.
As amended.
As amended to say for.
Yep.
Why don't you go ahead and do it? Because I'm just kind of ready to.
I'm asking for a motion to approve as amended, item number 73.
There's a motion by Hurst, seconded by Banks. Is there any opposition to the motion for the study?
I'd like to vote on the machines, please.
If there's no opposition, everybody agrees. But if you want to vote on machines on this one, we can. But there's no opposition. Okay. All right, no opposition, item 73 passes. We now go to item 97. Item 97, expressing the opposition of the Metropolitan Council of the City of Baton Rouge and Parish of East Baton Rouge to the development of an operation of any forensic psychiatric hospital in which the proposed location is within 2 miles of a school or 1 mile of a high-density residential neighborhood by Councilman Hurst. There are a number of you who've already spoken on item 97, but is there anyone else here wishing to speak on item 97? Anyone else here wishing to speak on item 97? We now go to council members. Many of council members have already spoken on item 97. Someone else in the audience want to speak on item 97? Come on. State your name and address for the record.
Keisha Robinson, 2736 Florida Boulevard. I did speak earlier, but listening to the questions for item 73, additional questions that I have, I would like to make sure that each council member clearly understand forensic, the definition, the scope of work that's done and everything before making a major decision. Again, people are moved by emotions. Any incident can trigger someone's emotions, a divorce, a illness, death of a loved one. All of those are triggers that could trigger your mental health. We're talking about individuals and Mr. Temple with upper management, but being directly in the work of mental health, those numbers, he was being very modest with them. We actually had a meeting today and we have success stories. Again, if you're taking your daughter or your grandchild to the movies, you can clearly have an individual that have committed a crime and have paid their time to society that could be in the same theater with you. So for those individuals that's $300,000 homes in Glen Oaks. But what if that individual sell their home and that person have paid their debt to society and they buy the home in District 5? So when you're making those type of decisions, you have to make sure that you're acting as public servants and not off emotion, as Councilwoman Coleman stated. Mental health is an issue that each and every one of us in this room can say that we can relate to. So the study of the UDC, let's make sure that mental health, thank you Councilwoman Banks for making that recommendation, because it's easy for us to have a study, but until we have experts that work every day in the field, best practices, so when those individuals leave East, they go to either Harmony Center or to Grace Outreach in New Orleans. They have programs throughout the state of Louisiana. So my plea to each and every one of you before you cast the vote, do A, I have a clear understanding of what we're talking about. B, at any given time, can it be someone in my family or my home? It's not a black and white issue. Mental health hits African Americans, Caucasian, Latinos, Asians, everyone. So we're not going to play the race game. We're going to play the game that at any given time, when the stock market crash, will my mental health be triggered?
Thank you, ma'am. Come on down. State your name, address for the record.
Kelly Stein, 5647 Hyacinth Avenue. This is possibly more of a question. I'm just noticing that in this, there are some matters that seem a little bit vague. So it says 2 miles of a school. Does the type of school matter? Are you talking just, K through 8? Are you talking preschools? Are you talking daycare facilities? Are you talking community colleges? All of these are schools at different levels, age levels. And then also it says high-density residential neighborhood. Can that be quantified in some kind of way? What does that mean? That's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. Please come on down. State your name, address for the record.
How you doing? My name is Nair Ransom, 4155 Essen Lane. And though I'm not in the Glen Oaks area, the comments that I've heard today, and also for the past few weeks as I've been coming to the Metro meetings, brings to me the idea of, do we want a thriving Baton Rouge or not? And that seems to be what we're boiling it down to. I've heard comments from Mr. Temple, rhetoric concerning young people, which is very concerning to me, and the criminalization of young people. I've also heard comments saying that, there's 3 other facilities of this nature, which to me is like, just because they currently exist does not mean they should continue to, especially in this capacity. Why continue to make the same mistake over and over and over again? That is Albert Einstein's definition of insanity. And I would very much encourage the Metro Council and also folks who have been silent on this particular matter to ask themselves, what type of Baton Rouge are they building by their silent acceptance of continuing to push facilities into already disenfranchised neighborhoods? Because whether it is a issue of safety or not, what it is an economic issue. And what we are continuing to do is pull the legs out from under folks who have continued, to bear the brunt of, making a better community for others, right? So, as we move forward in, making these plans, I would really encourage you to like dig deep and decide what kind of city you would like to produce in the future, because clearly this has been a thing that's been in the works for a long time, as most of these things are. So the decisions that we are making today are now going to impact people 10 years from now, right? So think about the Baton Rouge you want to have in a decade, in 20 years. And, if you want to continue to, exacerbate insane inequalities across our city. Thank you.
Please come on down, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Christopher Richard, and I'm an alcoholic. I've been an alcoholic for last 39 years. Last 30 years, I'm sorry, forgive me. I had to battle addiction. I was in East Baton Rouge Parish several times because of my addiction. I suffer from depression. I've been to the facilities that you're talking about. I've been to CARP on Lobdell. I did my 28 days of rehab. I had to go to halfway homes in this city. So I don't speak as a neighborhood association president or a concerned resident. I speak for someone who's been in the system, who's been in these facilities. What pisses me off is that common sense. I'm not saying that we should. I think the facilities need to be overhauled. Sleeping in three beds in a room, eating day-old food, trying to get clean, trying to get sober. That's hard. Some of you that I know, I order water and Coke everywhere I go. You want to know why? Because every day I want to drink. But one of the things I have to do in my sobriety is do the steps, is be of service. So that's what I do. That's why I get up here. That's why I bother my councilman, who I've known. Because I want to be of service. This is clear cut. You have the opportunity to make new laws, new legislation right now on how facilities of this kind can be set up. They will say that there's not a play to emotion, and that's all I have. That's all I got to fight with. Y'all have the power. Y'all can do this, yes or no. You have to vote within your conscience. Because I have to appeal to I have to appeal to what I know is right. Just like you're on this distinguished council. There's plenty. I heard the gentleman speak about mental health facilities. I don't know his background. I don't know him. But I've been in them. You can say that, oh, you haven't had incidents of this until you get soap-sopped. I guess that won't go in anybody's report. And I'm not saying that to make. I'm saying that to make a point. It's like not everything on the paper gets reported. These facilities change hands like I change socks. It's big business. This is money. This is what it all comes down to. Now,
Chris, I gave you a few minutes over your time, but that's your time.
I apologize, Council.
No need to apologize. We appreciate your passion and civic engagement.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on the item? We now go to Councilmember Moak.
Thank you very much. I would direct this at fellow council members as far as speaking to y'all, and I appreciate the public's comment and all. I have a concern. Look, I don't agree at the moment as far as that facility going right there next to the school, and I get where the concern's coming from for the public and everything. But this right here, and just to answer the gentleman's question, this is not an ordinance. This is not changing any rules or whatever else. It's just an opinion, kind of like it doesn't say resolution, but it's more of an opinion of the council about this, what's worded in here. And expressing the opposition to the Metro Council, I'm worried, what I'm concerned about, and planning can come up. Ryan, please. this is a broad net, I think, that we're throwing out there. When we talk about 2 miles and 1 mile, I think, is this, I mean, even if you drove up River Road toward LaBerge and found a spot right in the middle between here and LaBerge, and all that land that's out there, you're still going to be within 1 mile or 2 miles of a school. And what I understand, this isn't driving a mile down the road, turning left, and this is air miles. From where they want to be, you're going 1 mile in a particular air miles. Anything in that circle is going to cause this to be. And I think, is this even doable? And I understand it's just an expression, but is this even doable? Or are you basically saying none of this can ever be built in East Baton Rouge Parish by accepting something like this?
Speaking to the question about the distance requirement, the greatest distance requirement in the UDC regarding uses is 1,000 feet. That's currently exists in the UDC.
Correct. And maybe we need to expand that. Maybe we don't. I guess what I'm getting at from a council standpoint, what I'm asking you to look at is, look, Councilman Hurst, again, I go back to the thing, I do think we need facilities, I think, but this right here I think is a blanket to where I felt like maybe we can bring it back being more narrowed down. Maybe it could be a specific resolution to this particular thing or an expression to that. I think this opens up a lot as far as the city, and it sets something that we'll have to, or at least in my opinion, we have to state over and over. You know, we pass this expression and this resolution about we don't want anything within 2 miles and so on. So I'm just concerned about that as far as what the resolution is stated. So I just wanted to bring that up. Think about that before we do a knee-jerk. We just asked for a study to be done. Why can't we wait till the study's done and get some information back on that and let the experts come tell us, just like we do with master planning and stuff. They tell us these are the areas that this would work in. These are the areas that we could put this, and we kind of rearrange and change the UDC to match that. Thank you very much.
Council members, before I go to you all, I think Councilmember Hurst wants to make a motion to defer the item. That may change some of your comments.
Yeah, and so I am going to make a motion to defer, but I want to explain to the people in the audience why.
Well, I'm going to come back to you because they want to go first since they were up there first. They requested to go first. Councilmember Noel.
I'll hold my comments till it's brought back up after deferral.
Okay. Councilmember Coleman.
I guess all of this is in line with Courtney. Come up, please. And what I am looking at here is 73 is a study, and then we're going to approve 97, and we haven't studied. Yeah, we haven't studied, but that's what we're talking about doing. So, Courtney, talk to me about any legal concerns that you may have about a council resolution, or just come in, as they say in the church, come in your own way, baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I did a few weeks by email. So
you did.
Just putting council members on notice about this particular item and what it could mean. So you've stated it correctly. So you've got one item that actually is going to do the work and do the research, and then you got one item that the research doesn't exist yet, but there's a request being made that you all express a stance on it. So at this time, it's always best, of course, I'm going to advise the council to move with caution and to get the study done so that you all know the legal basis on which you all can stand on before you make a decision.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Keyword legal. Thank you.
Councilmember Hurst.
Okay, so we have had some initial conversations on this. I wouldn't have taken a step.
Oh, she wasn't finished. I apologize. I'm sorry.
So I'd like to make a motion. Let me put this on so everybody can hear. I would like to make a motion that we delete this resolution until we get our study back.
Second.
There's a motion to delete by Councilmember Coleman, seconded by Councilmember Banks. We now go to Councilmember Hurst, who is up next. Go ahead, Councilmember.
So my substitute motion will be to defer it, but it will be based on the language that if found legal, and I'm gonna find the right term, because what we do with these resolutions is instead of having 12 people show up at the planning and zoning meeting, which none of y'all are gonna be there, I'll never see y'all there unless we have an item on there. Not saying none. Shauna Banks is gonna be there because she sits on the board. But unless we have something major going on in our district, most of us do not show up to those meetings, right? So we won't, I mean, every now and then we do, but the bottom line is most of us don't, right? We come to the council meetings. So what this resolution was intended for was to show support that if this was found legal, that we would support it because we wouldn't want it in our districts. And so I believe that opinion, based on the words, we put the right words in there, which is why I'm going to request to defer it to allow time. Either that, I just reintroduce it, either one. But I want to thank everybody who did show up today. I believe your voices were heard. I believe the council, the community, everybody online, everybody out in TV land, the media heard that you all were in extreme opposition of this. I want to thank the elected officials that showed up because I know how many meetings we have on a weekly basis outside of your normal jobs, right? So I want to thank everybody. I am not deferring this because I'm not in support of it. I'm deferring it because I want to be legal, moral, and ethical with anything that we do. And the change in the language that states that if approved by planning and zoning, then we show that we are in support of planning and zoning's decision is completely different, which is what this was initially intended for, to show support so that when we are not at that meeting, I will be there. But I can show that my colleagues stood beside me because they wouldn't want this in their district either if it was legal, moral, and ethical. So I will request that the deferral go, and if it's deleted, I will just reintroduce it to be clear. But I am requesting as a substitute motion that it be deferred so that we can put the substantive language in there so that it does not negatively impact any of my colleagues or the city of Baton Rouge. Thank you.
How long?
I'll second the deferral if it's 120 days to give us time to get the study back.
Just delete it.
Yeah, I was thinking like 2 weeks, 4 weeks.
I second.
Because I wanted to show at the, well, you know what, I'll defer for 60 days. I think that should give them enough time to come back. Since we changed the definition down to strictly hospital, it should give us enough time in 60 days to determine. I just don't want to miss the opportunity on the zoning. If we do it too long, then the resolution comes out after the zoning study is done and goes before the board. So can we go with 60-day deferral?
Is that
Going
your
once,
motion?
going twice?
Is that your motion?
That is my motion.
Motion by Councilmember Hurst, seconded by Councilmember Dunn Jr. We now go to Councilmember Hudson.
Courtney, if you would come back up. Courtney, I want some clarity on if this item were to be passed tonight, what impact it would have on the development or the facility that the neighbors are up in arms about. So if we pass this item tonight, does it stop the facility? Does it shut them down? Or are they still going to be allowed to operate so long as they operate within the SPUD that they already have?
The resolution itself won't shut it down or stop the operational development itself. But basically the Metro Council is just taking a position that y'all are giving them a preview in advance that y'all are going to oppose it. If y'all have to vote on anything that has to do with operational development of a project like this.
So from a liability standpoint, we're taking a position on the operation of a business without a set of standards to sort of make that vote. Does that give the parish attorney's office any pause as to our liability, a business's chance to come and sue us for making that opinion?
That's going to give us some work to do. Yeah. I mean, it's basically what it does is, I'm going to give you the lawyerly answer, maybe, right? Because we don't know yet until somebody makes an issue out of it. And because this resolution is basically stating for the Metro Council that you all are going to say no to anything involving the operation or development of a project like this, the person that's seeking to make it happen, the developer, could say, oh, it's because of this resolution, that might be the problem. And so then the ball starts rolling in that direction.
Yep. All right, thank you, Courtney.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'll just tell you, my opinion is that the opportunity for this council to have an opinion about this issue is if and when the SPUD is, an application is put in for the SPUD to be updated. For us to just be making opinions without having the data presented to us, without having a set of standards that we can judge it like we would anything else in our Unified Development Code, I think is a really dangerous step long-term for us to be making as a council. Just as a matter of function of the way that the resolution is currently written, I also find some issues. I certainly don't mind revisiting it, but we talk in here about a high-density subdivision. Glen Oaks is not a high-density subdivision if you look at our UDC. You can. We don't really talk about schools in this. We don't really talk about certain types of facilities. We don't talk about daycares, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different things to look through, and I think it would be an extremely cumbersome floor amendment if we were to try and just defer it. So it's Councilman Hurst's item. If he wants to defer it, that's fine. I'm not going to take an issue with that. I just think a deletion and then a resubmittal might make it a cleaner item for us to discuss when it comes back in the future. That's my feedback.
Councilmember Banks.
Yes, for me, I've always felt that haste makes waste, and from making it clear, I would not want a forensic facility in my entire district unless it's an area where it's not around schools and residents. So, but I think that we may be missing an opportunity to examine all the things that should be considered in talking about not only future plans for a forensic facility, but also the existing facility as what we're dealing with now. This only talks about within 2 miles of a school or 1 mile of a high-density residential area, but that is not nearly everything that should be considered with this. And all the things that should be considered could be, how do we deal with overcrowding, safety and security concerns, inability to meet code. For instance, like Councilman Hudson said, this is would come before the council. It may not even meet code. We also need to kind of talk about what are the crime trends that exist in that community. We may have to make resolutions or ordinance that if there's a potential amount of crime or the data, then we should not add this to it. What are the liabilities for residents in the community that are already there and something should happen? What are the accreditation issues? So for me, this is very limited in scope as it relates to the miles. There's a whole lot that can come out of this study. I hate that we would want to even put a 60-day mandate on it because, again, we need to talk to professionals that are in the field. We need to determine what the different kinds of mental health, the language that is being used. What are the changes in technology, in medical, all kinds of legal issues. So for me, I too agree that we should delete the item. We should have a study and come up with, even the council members, talk about all the possibilities that we would like to have addressed, and then come back with an executive summary on how to move forward, both from the council perspective and a planning perspective. One thing that we do know is that mental health whether it's forensic or otherwise, is on the rise. And so we need to plan the fact that there are 3 that are none, and they are not hospital. But I can tell you from where I work on, as a career, the trauma that children and parents and even grandparents are experiencing, and those items are not being treated. It has given me a total new perspective on marijuana smoking, because I tell you, these kids, what they go through, and families, it's a lot. And so they're holding on by strings, children, parents, grandparents, everybody. So I don't want us to have a quick trigger on this, but we do need to plan it in a point, just like the young lady said, based on the future needs that, without a doubt, are going to be needed in every community, not only in East Baton Rouge Parish, but throughout this state.
Councilmember Hurst.
Hey, I'm going to pull my substitute motion. I'm going to have another motion once he seconds it.
I pull my second.
And I'm going to go with Cleve's original motion to defer it, because here's the deal, we want to do it the right way. I support that, right? And I believe there's been enough discussion around it to ensure that the planning and zoning, I'm sure Chana is going to ring every bell in there that day during that meeting, but to make sure that it's done the right way. And I truly believe with Chana being on that board that we'll have the voice that we need after I've thought about this a number of times. So I will make my deferral to post the study being done to make sure that we do it the right way and don't put the city in a binding position.
So what is your motion?
To defer it, post the study. So I would say I would go with Cleve on 120 days.
Motion to defer for 120 days,
Yeah.
seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Dunn Jr., which is a substitute motion. We now go to Councilmember Knoll.
Courtney. So I'm going to kind of jump off of what Dwight talked about a little bit, but I'm going to ask it in a slightly different way. So what gave me a little bit of concern is much what was spoken about. Obviously, when we look at item 73, we're talking about having a study. When we're talking about 97, it has some specificity about something that would otherwise be potentially allowed within the UDC. And I guess, should we see something, if we were to pass this, whether it's like this or even revised in some manner that has some specificity about what is otherwise a legal use under the UDC, and then somebody comes with a request for that type of an item, and we've already kind of given an opinion on it, spoken on it, and it's denied for reasons that are maybe outside of what anybody would be thinking today, that are otherwise would be considered legitimate and dealing with such as health, safety, and welfare, that you would have no problem, the parish attorney's office would have no problem with defending because it would otherwise be seen as legitimate. If that were to occur, but passing this before, would we run the risk of delegitimizing those otherwise what we would consider legitimate items by doing this? Would passing something like this potentially delegitimize those items if it were challenged?
So I have to give you the general lawyer answer.
I tried to make it so you didn't have to, but
I know.
okay.
But you know where I'm going.
I'm just asking, would we run the risk of delegitimizing it?
So I don't know. I don't know. But, and look, it's a resolution. It's not an ordinance. So you have to weigh that consideration also. But, you know, if we're just talking about straight up risk, yes. Yeah. I mean, the risk is always there.
Mm-hmm.
We just won't know what it actually looks like until it starts taking shape. But the risk does exist, yes.
More so about passing it than not?
Yeah, because we're talking about passing the resolution to oppose.
Any resolution similar to this, if something is later denied, even for a legitimate reason, would it be plausible that we're running the risk of someone challenging the fact that we did this earlier on and using that as part of that challenge?
Yes, the risk exists because people can sue for anything.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
and that's the issue.
We're
It's like-
potentially giving them ammo is my
Yes,
concern.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's like the short and sweet of it.
Yeah. And-
You're
and-
giving them something to work
And
with.
Councilman Hurst, that's my biggest concern with this, so I would just ask when this is redrafted that it is, keep that top of mind so that we're completely protected. I think that's kind of how we all feel. We just want to make sure we don't put ourselves in a bad position in the future. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Moak.
Courtney, please join us again.
Look, I was gonna stay, that's my bad. All right, I'm here.
In respect to the deferral versus deletion and reintroduction or whatever, on resolutions, we come back with the study, we find out where it's going or whatever else, is like ordinances that get deferred or you go to amend or change and they have substantial changes or things like that. Do resolutions work that same way? If this thing, right now I feel like this item here puts us in a position of we're basically stating as a council, we don't want any mental, psychiatric, forensic psychiatric facilities, hospitals in East Baton Rouge Parish. That, to me, is what this resolution or expression of opposition is saying, because, again, you go 2 miles, you're going to hit a school. Throw a rock for 2 miles either direction, you're probably going to hit a school somewhere. Go 1 mile any direction, I feel like you're going to hit a high density or a neighborhood that's going to be, the public's going to consider to be high density or something like that. To me, resolutions zero down to a specific something, this is really bad, this particular thing, i.e., if we express opposition against this type of facility next to us, right next to Glen Oak School or wherever it's at, it targets that. This to me is a broad item. So if he goes to change this later on, will it possibly have to be redone completely anyway or pulled for substantial change or anything like that based on what might be coming out of the study or anything?
So there's a possibility, depending on what the language would be, to amend it. But if it's a substantial material change, then yes, it would have to be reintroduced as a new item, just like ordinances do.
Okay,
because
I
it all
didn't
goes down
know if
to
resolutions fell
public
under that
notice.
same type of situation, or you can just take any resolution and change the wording on the fly, because resolutions to me have no teeth. It might to y'all or whatever else, but it doesn't change, or it just says, well, we don't like that. Okay,
Yeah.
deal with it.
No, you're correct, because it's not a law.
Correct.
It's not a legally binding thing. It just expresses a wish or a desire.
Correct. So again, to Councilman Hurst, being that we don't know what this is going
But
to change
I'm
to.
sorry, just haven't said that
I'm
because now
sorry.
my brain is turning.
Yes, ma'am.
It could be a thing in a lawsuit, so I just want to.
Yeah, because we've expressed that we
Right.
don't want such and such,
Right.
and they may say, well, you said now you don't want anything.
Right.
So, again, Councilman Hurst, I would request to go with the deletion. The timeline, the frame, the everything, it would be the same as far as if you had to reintroduce it, you could still do it within the 120 days, but let's take this off and start from scratch and go from there. Thank you.
Councilmember Hurst.
Hey, I'm going to resubmit it, but I'm going to do it the right way. So I just want y'all to know, I'd love for everybody to come back as I resubmit it. Dwight Hudson brought up some things that I plan on changing from the floor. We talked about this before, Dwight, so it's not new on the floor, but going from high density to medium or lower, just using the word subdivision, defining schools, daycares, churches like the ABC board does. So all of that's fine. So what I'll do is I will third the motion to delete it. And I want first by pulling my deferral for 120 days.
Pull my second.
And I go with the initial motion.
There has been a motion to delete the item by Councilmember Coleman, seconded by Councilmember Banks. Is there any objection to the deletion? Councilmember Hurst, would you like to vote on the machine?
Well, yes, I would.
Item 97 has been deleted. We move, Councilmember